demonstrate how to configure HSG or CMG from cloud. We had this solution topology where we have on-premise hardware, which can be our HSG or CMG or HSA, and they are all capable of being managed by mfusion remotely, and where we can push configuration for each of the hardware deployed remotely, which means the hardware just need to be online to the internet. They will call home back to mfusion, where you can remotely monitor the operating status of each hardware. And we can also provision configurations for each of the hardware remotely without having to get access to each of the on-premise device. This is extremely handy when the devices are sitting, or rather we have massive deployments, and especially if the internet links for each of the site is having dynamic IP address. So in our previous lab, we have already demonstrated how to configure for HSA. In this lab, I'm going to demonstrate how to configure for HSG or CMG. The difference between CMG or HSG is really that both of them are using command line configuration for the network related settings. However, for HSG, there's user settings and user database and captive portal configurations as well. So I have a box here with a fresh configuration. If you log in, you can actually see there are some set of default configurations. So all these are default config where the box comes with as a fresh config. So one of the key is the IP address for the WAN, which is the ETH0, is using DHCP. If you're having dynamic IP, a static IP address, you would have to change this to the actual static IP. So the key now here is to make sure the hardware or the on-premise box is able to reach to mfusion platform so that it can call home. And especially if you're using your private mfusion portal where the portal IP address is not portal.ransnet.com. For example, this can be your private owned or the hosted mfusion's platform. So I have a default box and with default setting, and I'm able to reach to the internet. Because in today's lab, I'm going to use my own private mfusion. So all I have to do is to make sure configure IP host so that you can reach to the portal.ransnet.com, which is your own mfusion IP address. So if you're having your own mfusion IP, this should be, in this setting, this should be your own mfusion IP address. So that's all you need to do on the box side. So really, whatever configuration now can be provisioned from the cloud. And in order to be able to push the configuration for each of the hardware, so you have to register the device to your mfusion portal. So you just get ETH0 MAC address and go to your mfusion portal. And on your mfusion, if it's a fresh box, so you create a customer entity. In today's lab, I just call it LAB3. Anything. So as a LAB3, so after you provision the portal or the entity, you just add the host to the respective entity, which is in your, if it is your customer entity, it will be your name of your customer. So the host name should be the MAC address, but the format you have to follow with a dash in between each of the number. Then you can give any alias, whatever that is readable, because this is MAC address, this is in device MAC address. So the host type is mbox. Then template, you will select between mbox or HSA. Mbox is basically for CMG or HSG. If it's HSA, you will select HSA template. Then you save change. So now we have added the device to mfusion so that mfusion is able to recognize this device, because you don't want every device to call home to your mfusion and start to manage them. Only if the device is provisioned and added into mfusion, then you can start to manage them or push configurations. So we just wait for the device to come up. So today I'm just going to push configuration for the I'm going to use our previous lab configs. Maybe let's say I'm going to use LAB3. So what I would do is I would download the backup config from previous labs, which we did it manually. We have manually configured the command line. So I have also backup that complete or rather partial config, which is in a MINC format. That means this backup includes the portal and the user accounts. And if it's command line backup, this only backup the command line only. So I'm going to download this complete or the partial. The reason why it is partial, I'll explain this later. But for now, the reason is partial is because the backup doesn't include the templates. When we provision the portal, this captive portal templates, the template file is quite big, so it's optional whether you want to backup or not. So I have backup the file, so I will just go to and check the mfusion portal status. I can't view the status of the portal or of the device, maybe because the entity was used. So instead, I would just try to use another customer entity. So I'm going to move this host to the customer entity. Move this host. Then I'll come here to mfusion to view that status. So the device now is actually online. So we are pretty much ready to push configuration already. So what I have already downloaded the config. So in a mass deployment scenario, you would basically have one config and you want to push to all devices. So all you have to do is just configure backup. Then you go to each of the hosts and you upload to the host and then you can push to them. If all of them are having the same config, you can actually attach the config to the template or to the entity level, then you will be available at the host to push. So in this case, I'll just attach this specific host only. And as you can see, once the device is online, it creates an auto backup file. And the auto backup file really just captures this whatever config that is running on the box. So this is the backup config, which is the fresh default config from the device. And also I have whatever I have configured just now, which is the portal.renston.com to point to my private mfusion IP address. So this is just the command line only. So what I do now, I will push the entire config, which is the MINC format. The MINC format includes the portal, and if there's any user accounts in the previous backup, you will be included in the MINC file as well. So I have uploaded this file, and I will just push, select. Once you have multiple file here, you can select which file config you want to push. So I will select this file, enable push, and save. You'll be asked to enter password. Password is basically whatever you use to log into the portal. This is really to make sure you are really genuinely trying to push a config. So within 2 minutes, the device will grab the config and reboot to apply the new config. So while we're waiting for the pushing to happen, so you just go to the lab topology. This is in LAB3 topology we have used previously, and this we have just pushed this config from the previous lab, and we're going to do a test later on once the config has been pushed down. So I have my PC attached to ETH2, and another AP can be any AP is broadcasting SSID connecting to ETH1, and ETH0 is going out to the internet. So if you look at the console status on the left, it has already grabbed the config and it's now rebooting. And once the reboot is done, and once the device boots up again, you will have all the configuration from the backup file. So I'm just going to stand by my phone to do the test. So since we're waiting for that, I just troubleshoot a bit of my phone projector. Okay, it's up. So I'm getting my phone screen here on the right. So the inbox now is booting up. So if we're checking the boot up config, it is actually applying the configs from our previous lab already. Okay, this hotspot config on the device as well. So I'm just using console to show you this progress. And after initial provisioning, or rather after once you have configured the box to push to point to mfusion, you really don't have to do anything else on the device itself. But I'm just using console to show the operating status. So the hotspot is running now, and I'm just going to use my phone to do the test. A bit of problem with my phone projector. Okay, so as per the lab setup, we got SSID LAB3, and I'm able to connect to it, and I can get the portal, and the portal is coming up. So I will try to log in. Demo user. And I'm able to successfully log in. So I will just show the UI of the HSG as well. So I can see online user, which is demo user, is my device. And the portal is being restored from our backup, and I can see the portal is exactly what I say from our user device. So one key here is because the backup file I use, it doesn't have that, is a partial Mink file. That means when I do the backup, I didn't have the template. So that's why here, when you click the template, it doesn't have the complete template. So the implication for not backing up the template is some of the features on the portal may not be fully available. So for example, in here, I have already configured, actually I've already configured to enable social sign-in. For example, in the configuration, I already enable Facebook login, but in the portal, I don't see it. The reason is because we don't have templates. So what I'll do is I'll just simply have to download the template online to enjoy the full feature. The reason why I didn't do the full backup previously is because if you include the template in the full backup, the file will be too big. So you just have to bear in mind that after you restore the config, you would just come here to download the latest template, so that you get a complete portal, especially if you have enabled some social sign-in options. So on the command line, you can verify as well. So you got one client logged in, and you can show hotspot client, and this is my IP address. So you can verify that's really my IP address as well. So you got 8.2, so 8.2 here. So that's really my device. So as you can see on the HSG, I really didn't do any other configuration except I only added a setting to point the device to the mfusion IP address. Then everything else is pushed down from the cloud, from the mfusion cloud by selecting the backup file. So if you're having the same file, you would just, for many other devices, they just have to push the same file to all other devices. and without having to go to each device to configure it. So I have completed template download. So if you refresh that portal, so the social sign-in option is available now. And just to do a test again to have another sign-in. So I'm just going to forget and reconnect. So I got the Facebook and Twitter login option. So I'm going to click to log in using Facebook. So straight away I can log in, and if you go to the user management, so my information on Facebook is being pulled down to store in the local box. So again, as you can see, I didn't do anything on the HSG. Everything is pushed down from the cloud. And if now you go to the HSG, you can actually, if you want to have other configuration, for example, if you want to change the settings, for example, change the IP address of the HSG, so I can just simply download this config and I can upload to the portal, or you can just wait for less than 10 minutes. The device will do another run of auto backup to get its latest command line configuration. Or if you don't want to wait, you can just upload the previous backup, which is pretty much the same as the MINC file, but it's in a readable text file. So you can modify the configuration. For example, I'm just going to, right now I'm getting IP address from 192.168.8, so I can modify to something else. Let's say 99.99.1. And you can, because Weibo requires me to have more domain bypass. So after you change the command line configuration here, you just save. So once you save, you create a new file here on top of the existing, or rather the original file. Then you just select to push the command line config. So it takes up to 2 minutes to push the configuration. So once the configuration has been pushed down, you will automatically refresh the new setting in the command line, and we can do the test again later. But that's pretty much how you manage the command line configuration. So one point to take note, the MINC file is not editable, so you can't change the command line setting here. So you have to change from the text file or the auto backup file. And after you change, you push again. So depends on what kind of file type you are trying to push down. The box will recognize that and auto update it. And if you want to do a complete backup of the device, remember we had downloaded the backup from here as a partial backup. When I say partial, that means when I back up the file, or rather the config, the entire HSG, I didn't include the template. But if you do want to include everything, so during your backup, you just have to select option to say, I want to include the hotspot template as well. If you want to minimize the storage, or rather the size of the backup, you just say you want to back up the portal and radius data, and you can give a name, and everything else will be included, and including the portal. So when you restore, the portal will be there as well. The user account will be there, and except the template, because the template will be too big for you to store, or other, especially when you have a lot of user data, and the template will takes up to maybe 100 meg for you to push down that info. So as we speak, the box has already grabbed the new config, which remember we changed on the command line to Okay, now I can't access because it's rebooting. We have changed the command line to change the IP address. And I didn't change it from a command line. So once it boots up, we'll verify that again. And on mfusion side, every 2 minutes you will refresh its status. So if after more than 10 minutes the box doesn't come online, you will become red. So your system will send alert to say that the device or the link is down. So when everything is running, you will see the operating status of the device, the CPU memory, the link utilization, and how many users are connecting, the WAN IP address and the public IP address of the WAN in case it is behind another firewall, and firmware and model. So we just wait for the device to come up again, and we do a final test before we close off this lab. Okay, so it is booting up now. Okay, so it's fully boot up. So just going to do another quick run of testing to show that whatever config we have changed just now from the mfusion portal is taking effect. I can log in successfully, and you check the IP address. So now it's 10.99.99. The original was 192.168. So that means whatever we have changed here, the setting, is taking effect here. Okay, and at the same time, when the box detects there's a config change from the previous original setting, you will do another run of backup. So this backup is really the latest command line configuration of the running device. So that's pretty much, it demonstrates how easy it is to deploy HSG remotely from a backup config, and how easy it is for you to modify the settings from mfusion and push down to the device. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for your time.